Chapter 27 of Sisters, Part 2. Rarity shuddered. Her heart was pounding, and her ears were ringing, and she took a moment to just lay there, feeling herself over with a hoof and checking for missing parts. She looked to each of her friends, relieved to see them both alive and miraculously uninjured. They had made it.
That, Amer's voice said, was incredibly stupid.
Rarity blinked, staggering into a sitting position and turning towards the voice. The mare approached with her lips pursed and brow furrowed, her blue eyes swapping appraisingly from Rarity to Pinkie and finally Fluttershy. She had a white coat similar to Rarity's, though with a healthy staining of salt, and a pale pink mane that she wore in a frayed ponytail over one shoulder. A bright yellow, short-brimmed hat rested on her brow, tipped forward to shade her eyes. Rarity took a deep breath to steady herself, shakily standing up and drawing the mare's attention.
Might I ask your name, dear?
Jester. The mare cocked her head.
And you?
Rarity licked her dry lips. Should she bother with her title here? No, she didn't know much of Leviathan Wakes, but she suspected introducing herself as nobility would do little to inspire warmth here.
My name is Rarity, and these are my friends, Pinkie Pie and Fluttershy. Countess Rarity,
Jester corrected, leaning in slightly. She smiled at Rarity's surprise.
Or would you prefer Auntie? You and Pinkie are quite popular among fellow survivors, you know.
The smile turned to a smirk as she shook her head bemusedly.
I had the pleasure of making conversation with a stallion from Colfer last week. He fled to Fellis and spent most of the year begging in the camps there, until it fell too. I suppose he got sick of flying islands, as he hitched a ride here and joined a fishing crew, just in time for the ocean to decide it didn't like us anymore. Can you imagine?
Rarity pursed her lips as Fluttershy spoke up.
You've heard about us? Of course I have. Every old pony in the sky comes to my bar one day or another, and air ponies are the lifeblood of Equestria. Though I don't recognize you.
Jester frowned, narrowing her eyes at Fluttershy.
A Pegasus with a pet bear would make rumors fly fast. New to the party?
Pinkie stepped forwards.
We're here to help. Help?
Jester echoed skeptically.
Really? You three almost got yourself killed within a minute of landing, which again was incredibly stupid, by the way. You'll have to forgive us, darling,
Rarity said through clenched teeth. The other mare's dismissive attitude was beginning to get to her. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain diplomatic.
Perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong hoof. Let me,
Jester interrupted, her tail flicking behind her as she stepped closer, right into Rarity's face.
4 days ago, a swarm of deep fish fell upon my city, slaughtered one of the Leviathans, and dragged half the ponies living here under the waves. Within a day, every flight-worthy airship left with everyone quick and clever enough to get aboard, and every night, those monsters return and lurk under our hooves in packs, ripping homes apart from the bottom up to get to the ponies hiding inside. They hunt by sound and feel, you know. Deep fish can sense a disturbance in the water surface from beyond the horizon, and every single step in this forsaken place disturbs the water.
She leaned in closer, giving Rarity no space to interject.
My old bar, my life, is a couple days adrift by now, and most likely settled on the seafloor with a few dozen of my patrons, ponies that I consider to be my friends. I've about come to terms with my death here. I've had a good run, and me and mine are satisfied with the idea of going down fighting and taking as many of these freaks with us as we can. But then what do we see?
She raised a hoof and flicked it lightly against Rarity's chest.
A full-functioning airship lands in the middle of town, and and drops off 3 idiots, engines on full blast, to erase any doubt that the deep fish will find them. And then those 3 idiots make a beeline for my hide, forcing me to waste precious material to save them. And who is it but anti-fucking Rarity, savior of Fairless, a mare that probably gets off every night to the idea of all the poor little ponies she saves wherever she goes, and now she wants to save me too!
Rarity opened her mouth, but Jester cut her off.
Oh, but how are you gonna save us, Auntie? That hauler you came in on can squeeze maybe 50 ponies, my guess, assuming it's got an empty hold. There are at least 4 times that many Wakers trapped in this floating grave, and then you have to feed them and find a place to dump them before you give yourself a new title as a reward. So, which 50 ponies is it gonna be? Who gets to die in their homes, and who gets to spend the rest of their lives toiling in some smoggy factory work pit until they're too worn out to even take a full breath anymore? 'Cause I would bet good bits that 4 out of 5 Wakers would rather die free than be hauled off to one of those torture chambers most ponies call a city.
At last, she fell silent, leaning back with a disdainful curl of her lip. Rarity spent a few seconds processing the other mare's words, gathering her thoughts.
Are you quite finished?
Jester shrugged.
More or less. Well then, your candor is appreciated, Miss Jester.
Rarity cleared her throat politely and straightened up.
You are correct that my vessel most likely cannot fit everyone necessary to evacuate the city, and correct that my companions and I came into this rather uneducated as to the nature of the threat. But it is not our intention to save a select few and leave the rest behind, nor to doom any pony to a life of toil. We're not leaving any pony behind this time,
Pinkie added forcefully.
Not again.
Rarity nodded, not letting herself linger on the unspoken implication.
Or die trying. And if what you say regarding ponies not wanting to leave is true, then it seems we have no choice but to save Leviathan Wakes itself, rather than just its denizens. You're mad,
Jester said with a dismissive snort.
And you've got a mad mare's dream. The city's long gone, and if I'm lucky, I'll get to die with it. Maybe we are,
Rarity said, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips.
But have you anything to lose by accepting our aid?
Jester arched a brow, a quiet thoughtfulness in her eyes. After several seconds, she spoke, holding Rarity's gaze.
And this mad mare speaks for all 3 of you? She does!
She shook her head, her attitude shifting to bemusement.
Well, they say impossible dreams are a chief import here in Wakes, so I'll humor you. Maybe we can die together, us mad mares.
She turned away, beckoning with a jerk of her head.
Come.
Rarity let out a sigh of relief, exchanging smiles with her friends before following Jester deeper into the ship. It was difficult to tell what purpose it might have served when it was first built, but it was obvious that it had been relegated to the task of floating home since then. The walls had been knocked out throughout the entire bottom deck to form a wide open, but conspicuously empty living space, with blankets and rugs layered haphazardly over the floor to muffle the sound of hoofsteps. Jester led them up a ladder to the next deck, this one with distinct rooms lining a snaking central hall, and then up again, through a room where several hard-eyed ponies were eating out of small bowls around a lantern-lit table and cards. A few looked up as they passed, gazes lingering on Rarity or widening slightly as Brownie shuffled by, but none said anything. Finally, they reached the top. Salty ocean air tickled at Rarity's nose as she climbed onto the deck and looked around. The ship had only one mast, towards the rear, and much too small to be effective, a tattered flag of a ship's wheel in front of a fool's cap strung up at its peak. A small team of ponies sat by the bow next to a crate of glass bottles, fussing with some threadbare netting, but Jester led them in the other direction.
I won this ship in a bet,
she explained casually as she walked up to the railing.
I'd been planning on selling it off, or maybe trading it for a favor, but then I barely escaped my bar with my life, so now this is where I hang my hats. I see,
Rarity said neutrally. Jester nodded, looking out over the surrounding city. From here, Rarity could see the torn and mangled gaps where entire sections had been broken off and dragged into the ocean.
I'll cut to the chase,
she said.
There's only one way you're saving Wakes, and we've given it a few tries already.
Pinkie stepped forwards intently, leaning in.
Tell us! Yeah, relax,
Jester said, not bothering to hide her irritation.
The issue is the Leviathans. They're what moves us, and usually what keeps us safe. But whatever's riled up the deep fish got him so pumped that they killed one in the initial attack. They backed off after, thanks to the waves, so we've got a chance of escaping this. But the one surviving Leviathan isn't strong enough to pull us when its sister is floating dead in the water. We've got to cut the dead flesh free to lighten the load, and probably a good chunk of the city, too. Oh, that poor creature,
Fluttershy said.
She must be in so much pain.
Jester arched a brow but ignored the comment.
The chains are in the water.
She pointed a hoof over the railing, and Rarity followed it to an almost castle-like structure on the far end of the city.
The deep fish calm down a bit during the day, and we've got a few of them cut, but there's this other thing. Like a demon out of Tartarus or something. It stays underwater at night, but once the sun's up, it attacks any pony that gets close to the water. Nothing we do seems to hurt it, and we've already lost ponies trying to cut the last chains. So the deep fish keep you from cutting the chain at night, and this demon keeps you away during the day?
Rarity asked. Jester nodded.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
She leaned back against the railing expectantly.
Of course, we got nothing better to do, and Wakers aren't the type of ponies to huddle up and wait to die. My crew here is making another bid for the chains in the morning. All or nothing. You're free to join us, assuming you don't particularly value your lives.
Rarity pursed her lips, looking between her friends. Truthfully, she was at a loss. She was most comfortable solving problems that, at least on some level, had their origin in disagreements among ponies. But she had no experience when it came to hordes of wild creatures.
That demon you mentioned,
Fluttershy said, brow furrowed thoughtfully.
Could you describe her, please? Her?
Jester scoffed.
If you haven't seen it, you've definitely heard it by now.
A keening wail echoed from beneath them, high and mournful. Rarity stepped to the railing and looked down, spotting the same strange glowing star from before twirling deep through the water, casting shimmering rays of pale light that silhouetted both the floating pathways of Leviathan Wakes and the lurking mass of deep fish that haunted it.
She sounds sad,
Fluttershy said quietly.
Sounds angry once it's got its eyes on you,
Jester said, her eyes briefly losing focus.
It's got a body of fire and burns hotter than a heightened foundry. You can tell when it's coming from the way the water sizzles and spits, but by then it's too late to run. You just pray it goes for someone else when it surfaces.
She shuddered, shaking her head.
Even your bones fall to ashes, and the waves will wash you away before the next dawn.
Fluttershy frowned. She joined Rarity at the railing, peering intently down into the water and watching the submerged star move. Her ears flicked as it resumed its mournful song. Her eyes widened with a sharp gasp.
Philomena!
Rarity cocked her head.
I'm sorry? It's Philomena!
Fluttershy stepped back and began to pace as she spoke, brow furrowed with concern.
Princess Celestia's pet phoenix! Oh, I knew that song sounded familiar! Celestia?
Jester echoed.
But Twilight saw Philomena at Phallus, didn't she?
Pinkie asked.
She's supposed to be... You know, Philomena's a phoenix, Pinkie.
Fluttershy said. Behind her, Brownie's head swayed side to side as he watched her pace.
Whatever Twilight did, she must have survived and reformed. And now she's attacking the ponies here. We need to talk to her. What the hell are you going on about?
Jester asked.
You can't talk to it any more than you can talk to a tidal wave. Well, violence hasn't gotten you very far, has it?
Fluttershy snapped, rounding on her with a sudden venom.
She's probably just lost or confused and acting the only way she knows how. What do you know of it?
Jester countered, shooting to her hooves.
We've shot it, bombed it, speared it. The thing's too fast and too tough. I can tell you, it doesn't care when we beg for our lives as much good as it's done us. If you want to help, then help, but don't mock us by talking at the thing.
Rarity pursed her lips, looking up to the sky. A threadbare old sail was raised on the ship's one mast, catching the stiff wind. Far above, she could see the flickering lights of the airship she'd come in on as it loitered, waiting for her signal. An idea came to her.
You don't have to kill her,
Rarity said, interrupting Fluttershy's response.
You just need to keep her away from the chains while you cut them. And how do you suggest we do that exactly?
Jester asked.
The sails.
Rarity lit her horn, outlining the sail above her in a soft blue glow of her magic.
The city is full of them, yes? I can gather them up, soak them in the water, and use them to try and smother Philomena's fire while you all cut the chains. I heard you took on 6 bounty hunters in a fabric shop with that magic. You're saying you can do the same thing against this demon?
Jester frowned, eyeing the glowing sail thoughtfully.
But how would you lure it away from us? Our ship,
Pinkie suggested, a hopeful smile coming over her.
If we fly it close to the water, we can lead Philomena away and keep her busy until the chains are cut. Could work.
Jester let out a thoughtful hum as she tapped a hoof.
And whoever captains that craft, they'll go along with it? Unless she's awake or she's got nothing to gain and everything to lose.
Rarity faltered, pursing her lips. It was true that the captain had been uncooperative and selfish every step of the way. Rarity had needed to force her hoof with a threat of economic destruction just to get her to stop and help one stranded ship. If she went aboard now, talking of using her ship as bait for an angry phoenix, the mayor was liable to throw her into the ocean and be done with it. Pinkie let out a dejected sigh, her smile fading.
Oh, probably not.
For a moment, all 4 mares fell silent. Rarity tapped a hoof against the hull as she tried to work out some solution to the problem, her gaze roaming across the darkened, abandoned city and idly counting sails. Philomena's song drifted up from somewhere, distant, as sparkling rays of pale light shone up from behind a lopsided ship.
How big is her crew?
Rarity blinked, turning to Jester.
I beg your pardon? Her crew.
Jester repeated, a slight grin pulling at her lips.
No air pony is soft, exactly, but a few seasons working a hauler can make a pony rusty. How many hooves has your captain got at her command?
Pinkie answered without hesitation.
18, and one of them's sick.
Jester nodded, her grin widening.
Well, don't worry about the captain then. Her consent won't be required.
Rarity blanched.
Darling, are you suggesting that we steal the ship? Are you suggesting we don't?
Jester countered.
My home's at stake here, Countess. I was willing to die and be done with it when I got up this morning, but you've shown up and offered us a fighting chance at actually making it here. You think I'll back down over something as insignificant as some selfish, far-off merchant's property rights?
She shook her head, jabbing a hoof up to the flag hanging above them. A ship's wheel in front of a fool's cap.
There's no law in Leviathan Wakes, and that's just how we like it here. Bits, wits, and nothing else. You say you want to help? You want to save every wretched life on this oversized flotsam? We're gonna need a ship to do it, and you've got the only flight-worthy one around. It wouldn't be proper,
Rarity insisted, shaking her head.
You can't ask me to help you steal an innocent mare's ship.
Jester snorted.
A mare your age, and you still believe in innocence? And in a merchant captain's soul, no less? You take what you can get in this world, and I see a chance to save my city in reach.
She took a step closer, straightening up as the mirth left her eyes.
Whether you help or not is up to you, but I'd wager that ship's gonna come and get you eventually. Or maybe you have some signal on you to call them down. I'm willing to work without your cooperation if I have to, so what is it gonna be? Do you want to be part of the greater good or the acceptable losses?
Rarity held Jester's gaze in silence, weighing her words. Could she really bring herself to be part of this? To take an honest pony's most precious possession away from them in the name of some greater good? Her gut told her to say no, to light her horn and use the sail behind her to apprehend Jester, to somehow fend off the rest of the Wakers until the ship could come down to rescue them. She could do her best to convince the captain to freely give her aid and hope that Jester wouldn't harbor any hard feelings after the rejection. But no. Friesland had taught her that she couldn't put faith in the generosity of her fellow pony. The captain would turn her down at best or maroon her at worst. The ponies of Leviathan Wakes would be doomed, with her and her friends most likely accompanying them. Backing down and fleeing wasn't an option either, assuming she could escape. She would be haunted for the rest of her life with the knowledge that she could have done something to save these ponies. And she could feel Pinkie's eyes boring into the side of her head, willing her to accept the proposal.
We're not leaving any pony behind this time. Not again.
Rarity knew how hard Pinkie had taken their inability to save all the suffering ponies of Phallus. Who knew if she would be able to take another, even more disastrous failure? Rarity couldn't bear to put her friend through such torture. On her other side, Fluttershy continued pacing. The usually timid Pegasus had been startlingly confident in coming here, and hadn't backed down from her insistence in approaching Philomena with kindness, but that could only happen if they went with Jester's plan. If they left now, then there was no telling when or where they might find Philomena again, and Rarity knew Fluttershy was desperate to help ease the Phoenix's pain. She could perhaps say no and force Jester's hoof, make a point of going with the plan but only against her will, but no. Such a thing would be foolish and immature.
A lady owns her decisions.
There was only one answer, really. The captain would be unwilling to give what was needed to save all these lives, but Rarity would be generous on her behalf. Perhaps they could even give the ship back afterwards, and a great good could be achieved with no lasting harm. Hadn't she done something like this before anyway? What had she done in Friesland if not steal Governor Rhea's city from her in the name of saving lives?
Very well,
Rarity sighed, glancing to each of her friends and receiving reassuring nods. Her horn glowed as she reached into her bags and retrieved the flare launcher, holding it towards Jester.
I'll do whatever it takes.
The stars twinkled brightly overhead as Anna stepped out onto the deck of the Dragon Scale. relieved to have made it outside without any further interference from the garrisoning Marines. The way she was shaking, she wasn't sure if she'd be able to handle a violent confrontation. Gava appeared at her side a moment later, wings already flaring for flight. She had been coldly silent during the walk, avoiding Anna's sideways glances throughout. Gava took to the sky without a word, and Anna's gut squirmed as she followed. What had she been thinking, lying to her sister like that? All over a pony she had never met. Her unease grew as she glided in Gava's wake, unable to enjoy the sensation of flight as she normally did. They drifted down, under the hanging urban sprawl of Harvest Valley, the stars above giving way to scattered pockets of lantern light and flickering windows. A small circular platform jutted out near the edge, accessible only by a narrow, winding staircase that disappeared into the island above. Anna idly wondered as to its purpose as she and Gava alighted on the metal. A fishing spot? A small personal pier? Or maybe some forgotten error of architecture too insignificant to be worth demolishing. Gava kept her back to Anna, her tail lashing behind her. After several seconds, she spoke.
You lied to me.
Anna said nothing at first. What could she say? Then she realized Gava was waiting for a response. She licked her lips, but her voice still came out coarse.
I did.
Why? Why? Such a simple question, wrapped up all neat and tidy in one word. And Anna couldn't answer it. As children, their father had imposed few rules on them, but she remembered them all clearly. Share everything, even your struggles. Support each other in all endeavors. Respect your sister's privacy, but never lie to her. She pursed her lips, thinking back to the moment when she'd balanced on the knife's edge between truth and lie and had slid without thought into the latter. She had been scared, but not for herself. She once might have looked away and forced herself to forget, but she couldn't bring herself to do it this time. Not after she had seen another mare so willing to give all she had in the name of doing the right thing.
I did it to protect the kid.
Protect her? A pony? Gava seemed confused.
From me?
Anna clenched her jaw. Did you really have to spell this out?
You know what you're like, Gava. You might have killed her.
And? Gava finally turned around, rolling her eyes.
It's a pony filly. What difference does it make to us if she grows up and becomes a pony mare? They're all the same, Anna. You know they're all the same. What if they're not?
Anna paused, gathering her thoughts before pressing on.
How can you know? We treat every pony we meet like monsters, and they're just returning the favor. So what?
Gava snapped, tail lashing.
We're supposed to let them walk all over us? No, that's not what I'm saying. Why is this so hard?
Anna sat down and took a deep breath.
Could we just try not treating everyone we meet like they're beneath us? Just see what happens?
Gava scoffed.
No, I know you're just messing with me. You've seen how they look at us. What about that old couple we passed before we boarded the ship? They didn't do anything to us, sis.
Anna shook her head.
They were just afraid. And what about those Marines that caught us in the hull?
Gava began to pace, glaring daggers at the horizon.
They were just itching to pull weapons the moment they saw us. We could have been a pair of lost tourists, and I bet they'd have cut us down like dogs just for getting our room wrong. They were just doing their jobs, Anna countered. Look at us. We're obviously not tourists, and for all we know, they were just trying to arrest us or something, not kill us. So we're supposed to wait and see?
Gava turned and met Anna's eyes.
You want me to let ponies threaten you, let them do whatever they want to you just in case they really don't mean it? Not happening. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying, Anna? Because I don't get it. Can you just trust me on this?
Anna stepped in front of her sister and placed a hoof gently against her chest, stopping her pacing.
You trust me to know stuff, right? That's when we are best. When I can scout ahead and see things and make plans and you follow up, right?
Gava frowned.
This isn't a job, Anna. I'm not gonna let you throw your life away because you're afraid to kill a pony that holds a blade to your throat. No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Anna leaned in, speaking slowly.
I'm just saying, maybe don't be so aggressive. Don't glare and snap at ponies just for being ponies. You can kill someone that threatens us, sure, but not innocent fools, and not just because you feel like it.
Gava didn't say anything for a moment. She looked between each of Anna's eyes, brow furrowing in thought.
Where is this coming from?
Anna blinked.
Huh? Why are you like this suddenly?
Gava continued.
You've seen me kill fools before. We've dangled dock workers off piers to get info out of them and then dropped them afterward anyway. You delivered a pregnant mare in chains to some rich old asshole and left without even looking back. We bombed a fucking city together, sis.
She sighed, grabbing Anna's shoulder and giving it a light squeeze.
Me and you against the world. That's how it is. How it's always been. I feel like someone stole you away from me one night, and I'm talking to an imposter. What happened?
She paused, beak hanging open, before adding quietly.
Is there something you're not telling me?
Anna stiffened, looking away and pursing her lips. What could she say?
The ponies I was supposed to hunt got in my head and screwed me up, and now I can't focus on anything I do?
No. That would only upset Gava more. She put on a smile as she reached up and squeezed her sister's talon in turn.
I'm still your sister, Gava. I've just been doing some thinking lately is all. We can still be fearsome. We can still be strong. But we can have friends, too.
Gava nodded. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes.
So this has nothing to do with that dress you've been hiding from me?
Anna's blood went cold.
Dress? I know you think I'm stupid, Anna, but I'm not blind.
Gava slapped Anna's hoof away, stepping back.
You put it right under Dad. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? You think I can't tell when you're hiding something from me? After all these years?
Anna hesitated.
You weren't supposed to notice. It's a valuable dress. Then why haven't you sold it?
Anna opened her mouth, expecting a smooth excuse to form in her head, but nothing came.
Where did you even get it?
Gava demanded.
Why is it so important to you? And why do you feel like you have to hide it from me?
Anna sighed. More lies weren't going to get her anywhere, and her sister deserved better.
Rarity made it for me.
What? Gava cocked her head, narrowing her eyes.
Did you commission it to get close to her or something?
Anna shook her head.
She gave it to me.
For a moment, the two fell silent. Gava leaned in ever so slightly, as if trying to see something through a thick fog, her brow furrowing.
You mean all this shit is over some ugly fucking dress? It's not ugly!
Anna's retort echoed through the air, bouncing off the chiseled architecture of Harvest's underbelly. Gava flinched back, her eyes shooting wide open, and Anna stepped forwards, pushing her sister back with the ferocity in her voice.
It's a beautiful dress! She made it just for me! Gave it to me without asking for anything in return! Nobody's ever done that for me before, and I thanked her with lies and deceit!
She realized that she was crying, but she wasn't sure why. Her chest ached and her throat burned, but she just couldn't hold the words in.
Don't you get it? I didn't know ponies could be like that! I thought they would all treat us like monsters, but I was wrong! I was wrong, and that means all those ponies I've hurt, that we've hurt, maybe they didn't deserve any of it. Maybe I really am a monster, and I'm trying to do better. I want to do better because the one time I found a kind pony, a pony that looked at me like a person instead of some demon, I betrayed her, and I made her hate me!
She sucked in deep breaths of air, body shaking, struggling to hold her tears back. If only she could make Gava understand. They could be better together. And maybe the next time they crossed paths with Rarity, Anna could actually try on that dress for her, and that generous, beautiful unicorn that poisoned her mind would smile at her like she used to.
Why does it matter?
Anna blinked, frowning up at Gava through the tears.
What? Why do you care so much about what she thinks of you?
Gava asked, her beak set in a pleading grimace.
I'm right here in front of you telling you how this makes me feel. Doesn't that matter? Why are you choosing her over me? I'm not choosing her over you. Let me think, okay?
Anna closed her eyes, running a hoof through her mane.
I just need to think. Put this in a way you can understand. I understand just fine, Anna,
Gava snapped, her talons scraping across the thin metal platform.
But it's like you've forgotten everything we've been through and done together. I'm just trying to protect you, but suddenly you want to put the feelings of some pony you met last month over your own sister. No, you don't get it!
Anna stomped her hooves and shook her head with an exasperated growl.
Why don't you fucking get it, you stupid bird? What did you just call me?
Anna froze, looking up with wide eyes.
Wait, so I'm stupid now?
Gava shouted, shoving Anna back hard enough her legs buckled.
You want to try shorter sentences? Or maybe draw me a picture? Do I make your life hard by being as dumb as I am?
Anna knew she should apologize. As much as she liked to tease Gava, she knew the Griffin was insecure about her over-reliance on brawn. She should have registered the wetness in her sister's reddened eyes. But the shove had caught her by surprise, and in her moment of disorientation, she snapped.
You know what? You do!
She snarled, jumping up and hovering to glare down at Gava. She jabbed a hoof into her chest.
Yes, by Luna, you do! I left you alone for barely a week, and you went and bit the horn off the most popular barkeep in Equestria, and now half the ponies in the sky hate us. And for what? All that! And you didn't even catch the ponies you were looking for! Oh, like you did such a great job!
Gava bellowed, sticking her beak into Anna's face, her fierce eyes shimmering with tears.
The ponies you followed could barely handle a little gang of bandits. I could have captured them with one talon tied behind my back, but you were too busy waiting and planning to get anything done without me, because you are a coward! Don't you dare try and blame that fuck up on me, Gava! If you tried thinking for 1 second before you threw away the element of surprise, then we could have gotten all 6 gifted together, like Dad always told us to. He's not even your real dad!
Gava's screech hung in the air as both sisters caught their breath. Slowly, Anna drifted back to the floor, her jaw trembling and her ears drooping. Her quiet voice broke the silence.
You're not supposed to say that. Not used to the truth, huh?
Gava jeered with a shaky grin, jabbing a talon into Anna's chest.
He's not your real dad. You're not my real sister. You're just some gutter rat he found in a hole and took pity on.
Anna's chest tightened as she looked away.
You don't mean that? Yes, I fucking do.
Gava growled. She turned away sharply, flaring her wings with a tense shudder. She paused, beak hanging open as if she was going to say something else, then jerked her head away and leapt into the open air, pumping her wings without looking back. Anna's legs dropped out from under her. She felt like a little filly again. A little lost foal freshly plucked from the street and trying to find her place in a kind old griffin's family. She had been so happy to have a family, to have a name, a sister. For the first time in decades, Anna remembered how it felt to be truly alone. She cried just like she used to, all those years ago.